What's up, everyone? Today, we're diving into one of the most incredible transformation stories in American history. We're talking about California, a place that went from a remote Spanish outposts to the world's fifth largest economy in just over 2 centuries. This is the story of gold rushes and tech booms, of Hollywood dreams and Silicon Valley disruption, of earthquakes and innovations that literally shaped our modern world. So buckle up, because we're about to explore how California became the Golden State and why it matters way more than you might think. Let's rewind to the late 1700s. While the American Revolution was kicking off on the East Coast, California was a completely different world. The land was home to over 300,000 Native Americans from more than 100 distinct tribes: the Chumash, Tongva, Ohlone, Miwok, and dozens of others. These weren't primitive societies. They had complex trade networks, sophisticated environmental management practices, and rich cultural traditions that had thrived for thousands of years. But in 1769, everything changed. Spanish explorers, led by Gaspar de Portolá and accompanied by Franciscan friar Junípero Serra, established the first mission at San Diego. This wasn't just about spreading Christianity, it was about empire. Spain wanted to secure its claim to California before the British or Russians could move in. Over the next 54 years, the Spanish built 21 missions along the California coast, each roughly a day's journey apart. These missions became the backbone of Spanish California. Mission San Carlos, Mission San Gabriel, Mission Santa Barbara. If you've driven through California, you've probably seen these names everywhere. That's because these missions literally became the foundation for many of California's major cities. But here's the dark reality we need to talk about. The mission system was devastating for native Californians. Indigenous people were often forcibly converted, separated from their communities, and made to work in harsh conditions. European diseases like smallpox and measles, to which Native Americans had no immunity, swept through the missions and surrounding areas. By the time the mission era ended in the 1830s, the native Californian population had been reduced by an estimated 90%. It's a tragic chapter that reminds us that California's story, like America's story, is built on both innovation and injustice. In 21, Mexico won its independence from Spain, and California became Mexican territory. The new Mexican government decided to secularize the missions in 1933, breaking up their vast land holdings. This created a new social structure dominated by wealthy rancheros who controlled enormous land grants. This period gave us the romantic image of California we still see today: the vaquero culture, the sprawling ranchos, the rodeos. This is where a lot of California's Spanish and Mexican architectural heritage comes from. It was also a relatively peaceful time with a small population of maybe 15,000 non-native residents spread across the territory. But Mexican California was about to be swept up in something much bigger. In the 1840s, American settlers started trickling into the California along the California Trail. These weren't just adventurers. They were families looking for opportunity, following in the footsteps of trappers and traders who'd been exploring the West. Then came the Mexican-American War. From 1846 to 1848, the United States and Mexico fought over territorial disputes, primarily concerning Texas. California became a theater of conflict, with famous incidents like the Bear Flag Revolt, where American settlers in Northern California declared their own independent republic for about 3 weeks. The war ended with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in February 1848. Mexico ceded California, along with much of the Southwest, to the United States. For the Californios, the Spanish-speaking residents, this transition was often brutal, as many lost their land despite treaty guarantees, victims of complex legal battles and outright fraud. But something else happened in 1848 that would change everything. Just days before the treaty was signed, on January 24th, a carpenter named James Marshall made a discovery at Sutter's Mill in Coloma that would transform California forever. Gold. Marshall spotted gold flakes in the American River, and while his boss, John Sutter, tried to keep it quiet, word got out. By 1840, the gold rush was on. Let me put this in perspective. In 1848, California had maybe 15,000 non-native residents. By 1850, that number exploded to over 90,000. By 1852, it was over 250,000. People came from everywhere: the eastern United States, Europe, China, South America, Australia. They sailed around Cape Horn, crossed the treacherous Panama Isthmus, or braved the overland trails where 1 in 17 died before reaching California. These 49ers, as they were called, transformed California overnight. Mining camps with names like Hangtown, Rough and Ready, and Hell's Delight sprouted up throughout the Sierra Nevada foothills. San Francisco went from a sleepy village of 200 people to a booming city of 36,000 in just 2 years. Here's the reality about the gold rush, though. Most people didn't get rich from finding gold. The real money was made by the people selling supplies to miners. Levi Strauss became wealthy selling sturdy work pants. You know them as Levi's jeans today. Samuel Brannan became California's first millionaire by buying up all the mining supplies in San Francisco before announcing the gold discovery, then selling them at massive markups. The gold rush also accelerated California's path to statehood. California skipped right over the territorial phase and became the 31st state in 1850. Part of the Compromise of 1850 that temporarily eased tensions between free and slave states. California entered as a free state, which would have huge implications during the Civil War. But the gold rush had its dark sides too. Chinese immigrants, who made up a significant portion of miners, faced intense discrimination and violence. In 1850, California passed the Foreign Miners Tax, which specifically targeted non-white miners. Native Californians suffered terribly. Some were murdered, some were enslaved, and many were driven from their ancestral lands. The California government even reimbursed vigilante groups for massacring Native Americans. Between 1848 and 1870, California's native population dropped from perhaps 150,000 to just 30,000. After the initial gold frenzy calmed down in the late 1850s, California faced a crucial question. What's next? The state was remote, expensive, and still relatively isolated from the rest of America. Then came 2 developments that would cement California's base in the nation. First, the Pony Express started in city. Kisti, cutting mail delivery from the East Coast from weeks to just 10 days. It only lasted 18 months, but it showed what was possible. Then came the big one, the Transcontinental Railroad. Starting in 1863, the Central Pacific Railroad built eastward from Sacramento, while the Union Pacific built west. Chinese immigrant workers did much of the most dangerous work on the Central Pacific side, blasting tunnels through the Sierra Nevada, working in brutal conditions. It's estimated that over 1,000 Chinese workers died building the railroad. On May 10, 1869, the two lines met at Promontory Summit in Utah Territory. The Golden Spike was driven, and suddenly, California was connected to the rest of America. What had been a 6-month journey could now be done in less than a week. This changed everything. The railroad brought more people, more goods, and more capital. California's agriculture exploded. The state's Mediterranean climate was perfect for growing crops that couldn't be grown elsewhere in America. Oranges, lemons, grapes, walnuts, and more. California started becoming America's fruit basket and salad bowl. Cities grew rapidly. Los Angeles, which had been smaller than San Diego and San Francisco, started its transformation into a major city. Real estate booms attracted new residents with promises of sunshine and opportunity. The late 1800s also saw the development of California's water infrastructure, since most of California's population was in the south, but most of the water was in the north. Engineers began the long process of redirecting water through aqueducts. This would become one of the most important and controversial aspects of California's development. As America entered the 20th century, California was positioning itself for unprecedented growth. In 1906, disaster struck. The Great San Francisco earthquake and subsequent fires destroyed much of the city, killing over 3,000 people. But San Francisco rebuilt quickly, and the disaster actually accelerated urban planning and building improvements. Then came the discovery that would challenge gold as California's most valuable resource: oil. The Los Angeles basin sat atop enormous oil reserves. By 1920, California was producing about 1/4 of the world's oil. This black gold funded massive growth and attracted even more residents. But the real game changer was something completely unexpected: movies. In the early 1900s, filmmakers were looking for a place with reliable sunshine, diverse scenery, and distance from Thomas Edison's Motion Picture Patents Company, which controlled much of the film industry on the East Coast. They found it in a small Los Angeles suburb called Hollywood. By the 1980s, Hollywood was the entertainment capital of the world. Studios like Paramount, Warner Brothers, MGM, and Universal were churning out films that shaped global culture. Stars like Charlie Chaplin, Mary Pickford, and Douglas Fairbanks became the world's first true celebrities. Hollywood wasn't just making movies, it was creating and exporting the American dream. The entertainment industry did something crucial for California. It created an image. California became synonymous with glamour, possibility, and reinvention. Everyone wanted a piece of that California dream. The Great Depression hit California hard, but it also brought new waves of migrants. The Dust Bowl in the Midwest drove hundreds of thousands of farming families west, as immortalized in John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath. These Okies and Arkies faced discrimination and economic hardship, but they also helped build California's agricultural workforce. Then came World War II, and California became absolutely crucial to the war effort. The state's shipyards built hundreds of Liberty ships and warships. Aircraft manufacturers like Douglas, Lockheed, and Consolidated built tens of thousands of planes. Women entered the workforce in unprecedented numbers. Rosie the Riveter wasn't just a poster. She represented real women building real war machines in California factories. The military also established major bases throughout California, bringing federal money and permanent installations that would shape the state for decades. San Diego became a major Navy town and remains so today. But this period also includes one of the darkest chapters in California history. After Pearl Harbor, President Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, which led to the forced relocation and incarceration of over 110,000 Japanese Americans, most of whom lived in California. Citizens and non-citizens alike were forced to leave their homes, businesses, and communities, losing everything to be imprisoned in remote camps. It was a gross violation of civil rights, motivated by racism and war hysteria. After World War II, California exploded. Veterans who'd been stationed in California during the war returned with their families. The GI Bill made home ownership possible for millions. Developers like William Levitt adapted assembly line techniques to build affordable suburban homes at an unprecedented scale. The interstate highway system, championed by President Eisenhower in 1956, connected California's growing cities and suburbs. This was also when car culture became synonymous with California. Drive-ins, drive-thrus, cruising on Friday nights, the beach lifestyle. California became the land of possibility with four wheels and endless sunshine. Education expanded dramatically. The California Master Plan for Higher Education, established in 1970, created a three-tier system: the University of California for research and top students, California State Universities for comprehensive education, and community colleges providing accessible education for all. This system became a model worldwide and helped create California's educated workforce. The 1950s and 60s also saw California become a center for counterculture and social movements. The Beat Generation gathered in San Francisco's North Beach. The free speech movement started at UC Berkeley in 1964. The Summer of Love in 1967 brought thousands of young people to San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury district. California became synonymous with questioning authority, experimentation, and cultural change. The civil rights movement had major California chapters, with leaders like Cesar Chavez organizing farm workers in the Central Valley. The Black Panther Party was founded in Oakland in 1966. California was where traditional America was being challenged and reimagined. Remember all that military investment during World War II? It never went away. During the Cold War, California became the center of America's aerospace industry. Companies like Lockheed, Boeing, Northrop, and others received massive defense contracts. The state became a hub for cutting-edge research in aviation, rocketry, and eventually space exploration. But something else was happening in California's garages and university labs. In the 1950s, William Shockley, one of the inventors of the transistor, moved to Mountain View and started Shockley Semiconductor. When that venture fell apart, 8 of his employees left to found Fairchild Semiconductor in 1957. This is often called the Big Bang of Silicon Valley. Those Fairchild employees and their associates would go on to found dozens of companies: Intel, AMD, Kleiner Perkins, and more. Silicon Valley wasn't a place on the map yet, but it was being born. In 1970, Intel introduced the microprocessor. In 1960, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak founded Apple in a Los Altos garage. In 1982, Sun Microsystems was founded by Stanford graduate students. The personal computer revolution was happening, and it was happening in California. But tech wasn't just hardware. The counterculture ethos of the 60s actually influenced tech culture significantly. There was a rebellious, anti-establishment attitude, a belief that technology could liberate and empower individuals. Stuart Brand's Whole Earth catalog connected hippie idealism with tech enthusiasm. This unique California mixture of counterculture values, engineering expertise, entrepreneurial ambition, and access to capital created something entirely new. California's explosive growth wasn't without serious problems. The state faced repeated droughts and water crises. Air pollution in Los Angeles became some of the worst in the world. Remember those images of brown smog? Environmental regulation became crucial, with California often leading the nation in emission standards and conservation efforts. The 1992 Los Angeles riots, sparked by the Rodney King verdict, exposed deep racial tensions and inequality beneath California's glossy surface. The riots caused 63 deaths and over $1 billion in damage, forcing a reckoning with systemic racism and police brutality. California also faced fiscal crises. The tax revolt of the late 1970s, culminating in Proposition 13 in 1978, severely limited property tax increases and constrained state revenue. This had long-lasting effects on public services and education funding. Immigration continued reshaping California. The state became increasingly diverse, with large populations from Mexico, Central America, Asia, and beyond. By 2000, California became the first mainland state with no ethnic majority, a preview of what demographers predict for America as a whole. In the 1990s and 2000s, Silicon Valley entered its golden age. The Internet revolution was centered in California. Netscape, Yahoo, Google, Facebook, Twitter, the companies that would define the digital age were California companies. The dot-com bubble of the late 90s saw incredible wealth creation, followed by a spectacular crash in 2000. But unlike previous busts, Silicon Valley bounced back stronger. The venture capital model matured, the infrastructure was in place, and the talent kept coming. The 2008 financial crisis hit California hard, with housing markets collapsing and unemployment spiking. But again, tech led the recovery. The smartphone revolution, led by Apple's iPhone, introduced in 2007, created entirely new industries. Social media went from novelty to cultural force. Cloud computing, pioneered by companies like Amazon and Google, transformed how business worked. Today, California is home to more than 70 of the Fortune 500 companies. It's the world's fifth largest economy, larger than most countries. If California were an independent nation, it would rank ahead of the United Kingdom and India in GDP. California today is a land of contrasts and contradictions. It's home to the world's richest people and some of America's worst homelessness. It leads in green energy, but struggles with drought and wildfires. It's the global center of innovation, but faces crushing housing costs that drive people away. The tech industry continues to dominate, but it's facing increased scrutiny. Issues of privacy, misinformation, market power, and tech's impact on democracy are all part of the current conversation. The COVID-19 pandemic accelerated remote work, leading some to question whether Silicon Valley's physical presence even matters anymore. California's politics have shifted too. Once a swing state that gave us Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan, California is now solidly Democratic. But there's internal diversity, a liberal coast, and more conservative inland areas, creating ongoing tensions about the state's direction. Climate change presents existential challenges. Wildfires have become more frequent and devastating. Water management remains critical, yet California leads the nation in environmental policy, with ambitious goals for renewable energy and carbon reduction. The entertainment industry is transforming too. Streaming services, many based in California, are disrupting traditional Hollywood. But California's cultural influence remains enormous. From music to fashion to cuisine, California culture spreads worldwide. So there you have it, California's epic journey from Spanish missions to global powerhouse. It's a story of gold rushes and tech booms, of immigrants and dreamers, of natural disasters and human ingenuity. It's a story of tremendous progress, built partly on tremendous injustice. It's complicated, messy, inspiring, and frustrating, just like America itself. California matters because it's always been where the future gets tested first. The missions were Spain's last attempt at North American empire. The gold rush previewed American expansion and immigration. Hollywood created global mass culture. Silicon Valley birthed the digital age. California's diversity and demographic changes preview America's future. Its environmental challenges preview global challenges. When people say California is different, they're not wrong. It's always been different. That's kind of the point. It's where people went to reinvent themselves, to try new things, to build tomorrow. Sometimes those experiments failed spectacularly. Sometimes they changed the world. Today, California faces serious challenges: affordability, inequality, climate change, infrastructure aging. But count California out at your peril. They've been saying California's golden age is over since the gold rush ended, and they've been wrong every time. Because here's the thing about California. It's not just a place, it's an idea. The idea that you can come from anywhere, be anyone, and build something new. That tomorrow can be better than today. That the impossible is just the next big opportunity. And that's the Golden State's real power. Not its GDP or its companies or its celebrities, but its hold on the human imagination, the belief that reinvention is always possible, that the future is still being written, and that you might just be the one to write it. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this journey through California's history, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that shaped our world. What aspect of California's history surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep dreaming big. This is the California way.